will for people to be healed and delivered? Yes. Is it God's will for the gospel to go out? Yes. Is it God's will that people meet from house to house? Yes. But is that all? Because, it isn't all. These are staging posts in what God wants to do.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is to have house churches or whatever it is. Then the problem is the people who hear that, then in 2 or 3 years' time, if the progression has happened, then everyone will be like, oh, I thought we said that it's going to be this, and it sets us up for continual disappointment, doesn't it? Because we're placing our hope in the wrong things. So the hope is in Jesus and the resurrection, isn't it? That's what hope is. They hope in Jesus and the resurrection of the dead. So the question is, when there's a resurrection of the dead, what is it that the resurrection of the dead people are going to be doing? And then it's what is his will then? His full will. And how much of his full will does he want to happen before the resurrection of the dead? So I've met a lot of people, I've been travelling doing simple, whether you call it simple church, organic church, house church, missional communities. I've been travelling doing this for over 10 years across Europe. And I found lots of people who are doing house church and stuff and they're dead. It's dead. They're not living for Jesus at all. It's no different to being in an institutional church. In fact, sometimes it's worse because you haven't got the manpower, the capacity to do anything. So, it's not the structure. Although, Jesus met from house to house, but he was taking the kingdom. So he preached the gospel of the kingdom. He said the kingdom of heaven has come. And so that means the people in the house, they knew that they were to obey the king, and they knew their job was to go to the other towns also. And there's an impetus in them to do that. It's not just about, we've now changed our church structure from this to this. They're actually living and breathing a new way of life. And that in itself spurns a movement. It's not just people have just changed their idea of what church is. Because actually it's a breathing ground for a lot of people being lazy. We meet in the house, we're not doing anything really apart from just, having a nice time with each other, that's it. That's not what Jesus Christ came to die for. And if that's our excuse that, we're doing simple church, which means basically we don't do anything, then we will be just more accountable than the churches that are not meeting simply. Different people doing, looking at movements using simple structures in Europe and in the world. And we've hosted them at different times. A lot of them are our friends. So Neil Cole's been over. He's written about organic church and looks at that approach. Wolfgang Simpson, a friend of ours, has written about house churches and houses that change the world. There's Steve Addison and Move, and we invited them over to the New Forms Gathering in 2013. And then from that, God gave them a call to move to England, and they've moved for about 3 years or so. They've moved back now, but they set up a thing called Following the Fishing. And then you've got No Place Left, T4T, you've got the IMB and Discovery Bible Studies, and there's lots of different approaches out there to the same factor. But, there's very few people that are really moving to that kind of mission side of it. It's more, the idea that a church is simple, so we just meet as church. But really, around the world, people that are seeing movements, it's not about the church, it's about the mission. So in India, they're about the mission. These are all the villages that are unreached. We're sending people, and yet we're going to plant house churches. That's the impetus. It's not, we was in a church building, now we're just going to meet simply. That's not the same infrastructure or the impetus. And that's what I was looking for, and still I'm looking for in Europe. That kind of mentality. What are all the towns and unreached places in Britain? What are all the towns and unreached places in Europe? And how are we going in twos to all those places until every place is saturated? That's the heart of it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when I've been across Europe meeting people that say they're simple church, house church, or whatever, most of them haven't got that impetus. They're not thinking in that way or implementing in that way at all. Yeah. Therefore, so if we say it's only about the change of church, that's the problem.
Yeah.
If you've been across them all and they're not like that, then it's not because they've changed church structure.
No.
It's something to do with, are people on the mission of God or not? It is possible then that you could get those words to go from town to town, and you could go to a town, and God could open up other different things that we don't know about, like you get in a van and going around and doing hot dog. So you know, we've got to be broader than saying that God's only going to do it in this way, because God, you know, Jesus went to one place and he preached at a lake. Then he went into someone's house, and then he found an upper room.
Yeah.
So you know, we need to be a bit more flexible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll be limiting God what He can do.
Yeah.
You know, Wesley and others, they did all different things. They were in the house. They was in a public building. They were on the streets. They did all of the things all at once.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking for, not the limitations on.
Yeah.
It's got to be this structure. It's got to be this, only houses or only whatever. It's like, no, it is going to be houses and cafes and pubs. And when the persecution comes, it'll go into houses or wherever anyway. So that's fine. So we train people to do that. But then when it comes out in the public again, we'll be out in the public in lakes and baptizing them. So it's not limited to just being one or the other. But what we do need to do is train people to know how to meet simply, so that when the persecution comes, they're ready. Otherwise, they'll be shocked. So then in that, then you move then into training the people who are there how to do the Acts 2:36 all the way through to 47. Not just the repent, baptize, receive the Holy Spirit and the deliverance, but also how you meet. And as I said, we do the in, up and out, or free thirds, or DNA, you know, people call it different things, but there's certain practices where you split your time 3 ways so that you're having 3 emphases. And that's an in dimension. Up, in is with one another, up is hearing and obeying God, and out is practicing how you're going to make disciples. So you have those 3 things, so that's practice. But what I'm also saying is that once they started to spread those things across India and places like that, they then also built an infrastructure, because then they're looking at how they're going to get bikes for people to go out further to the villages.
Right.
And then they're also looking at, you know, in those villages, the people are still poor, and so they're looking at how they're going to move into agriculture or whatever. Otherwise, they're not seeing any transformation in the area. So it always moves to another stage of development. It's not only staying at one stage, because when you don't have that, you have other issues. Your other issues are, if you get lots of churches, so you go to people very poor, you start to see them mobilise churches. They've got free time, they might not be working, but they've also got to eat, or pay, you know, they've got to live. So when they start spreading, because they're not working, they've got time, they can see a lot of results. So they can start saying, we've seen 100 baptisms, thousands of baptisms, but then they're struggling at home. So then what happens is, Western people hear what's going on and they go over and they start pouring money in.
Right.
So if we're not enabling the people we're reaching to change their economics, some people are going to come in. So when the people can start pouring in, they start buying the people. And then when they buy the people, it changes the whole thing. So what I'm saying is, there's sometimes more to think about. You know, we want to begin with the end in mind, not just think about the present. At the minute, the people who we're seeing fastest, when we're going out to knock on doors or something like that, is the poor. Or poorer, whatever you want to call it. So, in a sense, it's not that different. Here, though, you don't get the situation where people necessarily, although you do sometimes, where people from overseas try and buy the people. You get the thing where people get pulled to the churches. If you don't have an organisation beyond that house, people get pulled. So you still have the same issues in a different kind of way, but the same principal issues. Because, you know, I think that's another thing with people often that are just thinking simple church. They think they're anti-organisation, and that's a problem. For a number of reasons. It's short-sighted. It's not being able to see the impact of having no organisation has. You know, when you're reaching people, and you've seen it already, and you see all of the things like, you know, you've been working amongst people, and then somebody at their workplace or wherever says, oh, what happened? You got baptised in the bath. Oh, come to our church on Sunday. You'll love it because you'll come and your children's needs will be met, and you can join the coffee rota and all that. That's it then. Yeah. Because it's like when they're asked what organisation you're part of, it's like, oh, none. We just meet in our home. I'm talking about the people we're reaching. When they're then at work or wherever they are and they meet a Christian, when they meet a Christian, the Christian's like, oh, what, you're just meeting in your house, what happens with the kids? Oh, the kids are all around your feet, okay. But what, if you come to our church, they've got a big kids ministry. You'd be surprised if you've got an organisation that can put people to work in things that will lead to the extension of the work. Like them going in a bus and going to the next place, or having a food van and they're working on the food van. You minimise some of that because they're involved in something that's beyond only being in their house. And we need to. That's why we need to increase the infrastructure, which is what we're looking to do in this next couple of years.